only George Bush Jr. What do the Bushes have in common with the Edomite Jews? They're all part of the serpent seed line of the Illuminati and connected in with the Bolsheviks. Who financed everything? It's crazy stuff. They're all part of the seed line. It's the same ancestry as what we're seeing in this week's Torah portion. Esau, whom Yahweh said what? He hated. He doesn't use that word lightly. He hated the offspring of the serpents, of whom Yahweh told them straight out that their father was the devil. It was those in that seed line that instigated the crucifixion of Yeshua. And on Israeli television, right within the past few weeks, they literally mock on national television. They have a monkey up there that they nail to a crucifix. And, they totally mock Yeshua on national television. It's totally okay. It's wild. Nothing new under the sun. But what we see is that there was a prophecy spoken by Jeremiah the prophet in the 21st to the 24th chapter. And it was about an evil fig tree. And what did Yahweh do to that fig tree? He cursed that fig tree. He wasn't cursing his own people, no, but those he hates. The serpent seed line of Esau and Cain. And Yeshua also did what? Cursed the evil fig tree. What is the birthright? The birthright is bringing forth his seed line, the Redeemer, from Adam through Yeshua. And Esau does not care about that prophecy. I mean, look at Esau and his Hittite wives. The Hittites, they were descendants of Heth. And Heth was one of the sons of Canaan. What was Canaan? He was the cursed seed, right? Cursed seed. Canaan was the son of Ham. Anyone want some ham? And the father of all the Canaanites, including the Hittites. Those people were a cursed seed because of what Ham did to his father. Well, what did Ham do to his father Noah? He went in and he slept with Noah's wife, who wasn't his mother. And according to the Torah, Leviticus 18 verse 7, that is the biblical definition of uncovering your father's nakedness. We don't have to guess what happened in there. The Bible tells us, the nakedness of your Abba, or the nakedness of your Ema, shall you not uncover. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Verse 8, the nakedness of your father's wife, you shall not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. So how do you uncover your father's nakedness? You uncover the nakedness of your father's wife, who isn't your mother. I did it again, didn't I? Read verse 7 and 8. That's what he did. Meaning his real mother must have passed away and didn't make it onto the ark. And that's what we have in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 1, the same seed line doing the same thing. And there is a man sleeping with his father's wife who isn't his mother, and they're letting it go on in the Corinthian church. Because the seed line was still going on about then, as it is today. Obadiah tells us in the first chapter that there's a prophecy, and it's written about the serpent seed line of Esau in these last days. Let's turn to Obadiah 1. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock. So this seed line, they're going to hide themselves away from public view in underground bases underneath the rocks. Can we all agree with that? Okay. Whose habitation is high. What does that mean? It's going to be like an eagle. It's going to be like a world authority, a political authority, and most probably have the eagle, whose habitation is the highest of the birds, and that might be their symbol. Maybe, or maybe I'm reading too much into the word. Like the Third Reich and the Romans. Thank you, somebody who knows their history. See, I didn't chase girls when I was in an all-boys school. I sat in the library and read history books. There was nothing else to do, that or smoke cigarettes. I did both. Thou may exalt thyself as the eagle, which just so happens to be the Illuminati symbol. Isn't that interesting? And thou set thyself up against a nest among the stars, like space stations and planetary bases. Thence will I bring thee down, saith Yahweh. Verse 4. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are things hidden, things sought up? So Esau is working through deception and lies to keep their real plans hidden from public view. Verse 6. Shall I not in that day, saith Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom? Who are the wise men out of Edom? The learned elders of Zion, which rule behind the scenes. An understanding out of the mount of Esau. Again, speaking about authority. And thy mighty men, verse 8, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that they may be cut off by the slaughter. So this is Yahweh's judgment on them when he returns. Verse 8, For the violence against thy brother, who's the violence going to be against? Why against Jacob, I wonder? Because could there be people in the house of Jacob that might be telling you who the true birthright belongs to? And you know what? They want to get rid of people like that. Because, that doesn't work with the agenda, right? Because you could actually read your Bibles and find out that it's true. For violence against thy brother Jacob shall cover thee. It's the war on the saints. And thou shalt be cut off forever. Verse 9. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau will be for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining in the house of Esau, for Yahweh has spoken it. And look at verse 18. And saviors or judges shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount, the authority, the government of Esau. The kingdom shall be Yahweh's. Verse 21. But that's not what the world tells us. That's not what the world tells us. Again, everything that is black is really white. Everything is up is really down. And the Bolsheviks always come up smelling like roses. I mean, even something that could have started out maybe initially pure, something great, maybe it really was going to be good news. I mean, the amount of people that, oh yeah, Glenn Beck. Oh, that was great news for a bit until what happened? I don't know if you were there, that was a few years ago, when he was going to share something, but then he didn't. Do you remember that? It was a big announcement, but then he didn't. Why? And the news ever since then? It's just been just a spin. There's little truth there. It's just the same old spin with a neoconservative slant. That's not news. Because they always come up smelling like roses. But what is the rose? I mean, even where I come from, we read in those history books, we have the Tudor rose in England. And how many petals were on the Tudor rose? 10 petals. How many tribes were scattered into the nations? And in front of the White House, there just so happens to be a rose garden. See, things aren't quite the way they seem. The War of Roses in England. And even with the flags, things aren't quite what they seem. The ancient forerunner to the Star-Spangled Banner was none other than the Union Jack, my country's home flag. Now, what did Balaam say? He compared Israel to a unicorn and a lion in Numbers 23, which foreshadows what? The heraldic coat of arms of the British Empire. The stars represent the tribes of Israel, according to Genesis 37, verse 5. And the Union Jack symbolized Jacob's crossed hands. The Commonwealth of Jacob. Even the word Britain comes from Brit-Am. What does that mean, John? Covenant people. Brit-Am. Anglo-Saxon. Sons of Isaac. Crazy stuff. I mean, American history. America. Where does America come from? Well, Christopher Colombo. I mean, we're at this point with my kids now, I've got to be careful. Like I said, with homeschooling, we ain't teaching my kids about Christopher Colombo unless we're teaching them about the real Christopher Colombo. America comes from Machir. Machir. America, Machir. Who was Machir? Manasseh's firstborn, who had what? Birthright. And that's what we have, Machir, and we see this rose garden in front of the White House. And who's trying to affect that? Nothing other than the Jewish lobby trying to affect the goings-on in front of the rose garden. Why? Because Judah is the Jewish lobby that is trying to affect the goings-on in the White House at the rose garden. Why? Because Judah was never destined, even though the Jewish lobby in J-Front would try and say something different, it was never destined for America. The Bible tells us that Judah was destined for where? Greece and Ethiopia. Never America. Never. The children also of Judah and the children of Israel have ye sold unto the Grecians, the Greeks, that ye might remove them from their border. Behold, I will raise them up out of the place where ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. And I will sell your sons and your daughters to the hands of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabaeans, the Ethiopians, to a people far off, for Yahweh has spoken it. The Bible tells us that Judah is going to end up in Ethiopia and Greece. I don't know. Why was the Obama administration supported by a large Jewish lobby on June 10th at the U.S. mission in Uganda? That's what I want to know. Why? What were they doing with the Uganda National Blood Service? Collecting blood at the embassy. And nobody reports on it. Why? Why would the Obama administration, supported by the Jewish lobby, go to Uganda and go to the embassy and then hook up with the Uganda National Blood Service? Oh, because it was a good work, right? But why Uganda? Again, all those years reading history. Uganda, when the British first arrived in Africa, they recognized the Baganda. Why is it called Uganda? The Baganda. The Baganda tribe. The Baganda tribe, they had the highest order of civilization in a very uncivilized continent when the British got there. How come the Baganda tribe was so organized, yet the rest of Africa, which the British was in, was extremely disorganized and backbush or backwater? Yet the Baganda tribe had organization, and the British wanted to know what was going on. Well, Uganda was at one time called Suda, meaning Judah. What's the name of the desert in the Sudan? Bar Yuda Desert. The desert in the Sudan is called the Bar Yuda Desert. It testifies to the presence of Judah in Sudan. And again, we go back to my initial question, why would the Obama administration be collecting blood samples in Uganda? What's our Torah portion called? Toldot. But don't believe me, because you know the politicians would never want to kill your children. Ephraim was destined to, John is like, Ephraim was destined to end up in America. Ephraim was destined to end up in America. Which is really the latter day Egypt, is it not? I mean, it really is. We've got a lot of Egyptian symbology here. In Hosea 9 verse 3 it says, "They shall not be able to remain in the land of Yahweh, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt." And Hosea 8:11 says, "For Ephraim has multiplied altars for guilt. He will punish Ephraim's sins back to Egypt with them." We really are in Egypt. We really are in Egypt. We've gone back to Egypt, and it literally is slavery. Get you in debt. Let's get you in debt. And I made a lot of mistakes too. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs on my house. You know, a lot of you are, some of you aren't. But I made that decision because, you know, somebody advised me 15 years ago that was a good thing, you should buy a house. You see, the majority of the Israelite tribes, they actually resided under the authority of the house of Joseph. That's what we don't hear about. And that was actually ruled, the house of Joseph was ruled by the tribe of Ephraim, right? 10 Israel, northern Israel. Prior to the expulsion of the northern kingdom of Israel in 722, before the Common Era, many Ephraimites of the house of Joseph actually fled to Arabia, where they became known as the Bani Qabai tribe. Others settled in the Horn of Africa and became known as the Afar, which comes from Ephraim, Ephar. Some were referred to as the Danakil, meaning they came from the tribe of Dan. Now, many of the Ephraimites, or Afar, moved westward, settling in Morocco, in particular Marrakesh, Mauritius, and Mali. Now, in North Africa, they became known as the Banu Ifran, meaning the children of the tribe of Ephraim. While their tribal lands, the tribal lands of the children of Ephraim in Africa were known as none other than Afri, which is where the Romans got the name Africa from. That's where it comes from. The Romans named it. Why? Because of the tribe of Afri from Ephraim, Africa. And that leads us to Christopher Colombo. Who used to watch that TV show Colombo? I like Colombo. And really, Christopher Colombo, he really is. Christopher Colombo. Give me a break, Christopher Columbus. The truth is, in 1311, Akbar II, who was the emperor of Mali, set sail across the Atlantic with a 1,000-vessel fleet and begun the settlement of the house of Joseph in the Macris from Manasseh's firstborn son, where we get America. That happened in 1311. Even the Egyptian historian Ibn Din Fadullah records this voyage. And the Malayan Afrimites, or Bafour, joined members of the Deni tribes, which were Danite, such as who other than the Navajo and the Apache, which were actually Danites from the tribe of Dan, as opposed to the Danish. And that is how we got the populating of the western lands, which were promised to the children of Israel. Things aren't always as they appear. They're not. I mean, even this symbol that we've taken to think. I mean, we used to have it in here until I got wise. There was this little guy called Ma Bauer. He had a little bank, and on the side of that little bank, where he charged a lot of interest, he had a little shield outside his bank. It was called the Rothschild. The Rothschild, the red shield. You came in the red shield, you knew you were getting... They were the red Jews of Khazaria, Ashkenaz, and Magog. The Rothschilds means the red shield. And this is none other than the Rothschild coat of arms today. Bankers who charged a lot of money, a lot of interest. And that is the idea. Let's get all of the nations, including Syria, let's give them lots of money, like the Palestinians. Let's give them tons of money, like billions of your dollars. And guess what? They'll need it because, first of all, we'll cut off the electricity. Then the greenhouses, we'll just strip them of, no electricity, no power. They've got no food. And we stop all building. Then we'll give them a ton of money because they need to rebuild after we've bombed them. And then guess what? They can pay us the money back. Huge interest. They're done. It's exactly what they need to do to Syria. Let's bomb the heck out of Syria. Then we're going to give them a ton of money to rebuild, build our image, and then guess what? They can repay it back to us. Huge interest. They're done. Let's do that to every single country, and then everyone's done. But again, things aren't always as they appear. This is the Turkic flag of Karamongulu. 1250 to 1487, there was a state of Karamangalu which first came into being. Now the Mamelukes took control of Jerusalem in 1260. The Mamelukes took control of Jerusalem in 1260. Now the Jewish population in Jerusalem believed that Karamangalu could be accessed by a means. If they persuaded the Mamelukes to recognize the Jewish province in Jerusalem, they needed to appease them. In order to reinforce their expectation and stir religious fervor, the Jews used the flag of Karamangalu and adopted it as their own religious flag. A variant of the Karamangalu flag appears for the first time as a Jewish flag in 1354 in Czechoslovakia. However, this flag was not preserved, and another variant of the Karamangalu flag which was a red background with a yellow star. Why did Hitler put yellow stars on the Jewish people? That was called the Third Reich. He knew his history about the Second Reich, and he knew his history about the First Reich. And Hitler was an evil, evil man. And what he did was wrong. But does it play into the Toldot portion and generations? For sure. For sure. So the Jewish population adopted this flag because they were trying to appease the Mamelukes when they took control of Jerusalem in 1260. And this would give them common ground. Now, what we see then is it at the first Zionist Congress, which was in Basel in 1897, the flag of Karamangalu was officially declared to be the flag of Zionism. The revitalization, of the flag of Karamangalu as a Jewish national flag was done. Why was it done? The same reason they did it in 1260. Solomon is so wise, he says there's nothing new under the sun. The same reason they did it in 1260 was the same reason they did it in 1897. Did the British own Palestine in 1897? Did they? No. Who did? The Turks did. So how about we did it in 1260 and it worked great? Let's do it again, because guess what? I think it might work great again. Let's adopt it, Theodore Herzl says, at Basel at the first Zionist Congress, and they adopt it again in 1897 because the Ottoman Turks were in control of the land that they wanted. And now they could present Zionism underneath a cloak of Turkic origin to the Turks. This was accepted because of the Turkic Khazar origins of European Jews. The European Jewish Khazar converts were not Turkic Tatars, but were actually descendants of Ashkenazi tribesmen known as White Khazars. The White Khazars were described as having red hair with white skin and blue eyes, like pottage. Edomites. The descendants of White Khazars were actually found predominantly in Poland and Germany. So even when you look and read the apocryphal books like the book of Maccabees, the spirit behind the Maccabees and the Hasmonean dynasty and the spirit behind modern Zionism, it's the same spirit. It's the violent taking of the kingdom inheritance by force. I'm not big on Hanukkah, personally, because I read history. It's a very nationalistic, violent taking of the kingdom by force. It's not in Yahweh's plan. It's the same thing. It's not Ruach HaKodesh. Today, Jews have a problem understanding that they never had the right to the kingdom, because that includes ownership of the land of Israel and its government. And they lost it to the northern kingdom of Israel when the two nations split. They cannot own any land without Joseph. They retained the king. Yes, they did. The messianic line, for sure. But they lost the kingdom. The rule and the right of rulership of government has to belong to Ephraim and Manasseh and Joseph. Ephraim gets a double land inheritance. Ezekiel 47 verse 13. This says the Master Yahweh. This shall be the border by which you shall inherit the land according to the 12 tribes of Israel. The land is always according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions. I can't stress the importance of this teaching because some of you aren't awake enough to the realization that you've only got a few years left in your life before you die. Okay? Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20. I don't know how long I've got. You were put here for a specific purpose. Each and every one of you has a specific purpose. we're coming to the revelation that we need to get out of debt. We need to be in a position where we're not like the nations, and that we need to put these things into place because Yahweh has chosen you to see these things and made connections into your life so that you can be a part of this amazing thing that Yahweh wants to bring forth, which is biblical Israel. Oh, well, I'm just a guy. You know what? Theodore Herzl didn't know Yeshua, and he was just a guy. He was just a guy. And he was under the spirit of Antichrist. You know Yeshua, you're in the Torah, and you have the revelation and the connections, and Yahweh says, this is the time. But you've got to be bold. You've got to stand up, and we've got to act fast. Because I'm serious, it's crazy out there. This is the time, brethren. I don't know how it's all going to work, but it's exciting and scary as hell, too. It is, but it is exciting. Hell was just a garbage pit south of Jerusalem where they burn the trash, okay? My wife's like, you can't say that. And, she's got way more discernment than me, for sure. But I now like to say it a lot. Let's talk about the two comings of Yeshua. Yeshua has to come twice. Why? First, he had to come as Judah. He had to come to Judah as the Lion of Judah, Revelation 5:5. And second, he must return to Joseph. Why? In order to secure his birthright, the land of Israel. This means that Joseph must be in the land of Israel, the Holy Land, in charge of it before Yeshua can come back to claim it. Satan wishes the kingdom birthright to be destroyed. Why? So that Yeshua cannot return. We have to be an active part of prophecy. We have to do our due diligence because we have been governed with a task. Ephraim without Torah, you're just another illegal immigrant. And that's why the British got kicked out of Palestine. Because they were Ephraim or Manasseh without Torah. Right? So that means you're an illegal immigrant, according to the Bible. The British were there from 1917 to 1948. They were the shepherds. They were supposed to be the shepherds. Ephraim was supposed to be the shepherds. But what did they refuse to do? What did the British refuse to do while they were... they refused to search for biblical Israel whilst they were in the land. They refused to search for biblical Israel. So what happened? Ezekiel 34 verse 4. The weak you have not strengthened, nor have you healed those who were sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back what was driven away, nor sought what was lost. What was lost? Ephraim, the 10 northern tribes, the rose of Sharon, or the petal. But with force and cruelty you have ruled over them. So Yahweh declared in the 11th verse of Ezekiel 34, indeed, I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out. And Yahweh's done that with us, has he not? I mean, what lens have we been viewing the scripture through? What lens have we been viewing Israel through? Psalm 60 verse 7. Ephraim holds Yeshua, who is the Rosh, and Judah is the one that holds the Torah. Gilead is mine, Manasseh is mine, Ephraim is the strength of my head, and Judah is my lawgiver. So this whole idea as the lost 10 tribes of Israel, you're saying that Yahweh lost his head. He didn't. But if we don't get into the covenant of promise, which is this Melchizedek covenant, Ephraim is going to find out that they'll actually end up turning back in the tribulation. It says in Psalm 78 verse 9, the children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turn back in the day of battle. Because you can be armed with knowledge, you can be armed with the book of the law, but it's not going to give you the sufficient strength to walk in the covenants of promise, which is land, inheritance, and birthright. Always was. Ephraim and Judah really are two separate streams of prophetic history. Ephraim would get the revelation of transference. And that's what we've got. That's what I'm understanding. That as Ephraim, I have the revelation of transference. And it's twofold. It's duplicity. Not only the transference of the covenant that we have from Levi now to Melchizedek, there's a transference of priesthood, but also there's a transference of birthright, is there not? For sure. I don't know, I didn't make that connection. But look at Rehoboam. Rehoboam was only given, how many tribes was Rehoboam given? He was only given one tribe. He wasn't given Benjamin and Levi. He was only given one tribe. Kingdom, the Hebrew word for kingdom is mamlakah, which literally means dominion, estate, rule, or realm. The truth is that in order to become Israel, Judah actually has to unite with Joseph, not the other way around. But with Joseph out of the way, then Reuben can become the de facto firstborn, can't he? Even though he was totally disqualified by his disposition. Reuben attempted to re-seize the now transferred birthright from Joseph. And that's exactly what you've got today in the modern Theodore Herzl state, trying to re-seize the now transferred birthright. That makes sense? That's what it is. It's a re-seizure of what has been transferred. Why do you think, too? I mean, this is my 9th year of teaching Torah. So I met people 9 years ago, teachers. I won't go off on it, John, don't worry. That, said one thing, and now 9 years later you see the evolution, And how come, if anyone ever does any genealogical research on themselves, how come they don't find out they're from the tribe of Dan or Gad or Asher? How come it's always the tribe of Judah or Levi? How come? Why is that? Why? Because when I met you 9 years ago, you weren't. I mean, why? I mean, I've never met anybody who did any genealogical research or got into their roots and found out that they came from any other tribe but Judah or Levi. So they can usurp the brethren and gabar, just like the scripture says, rule over them by force. And you'll never get that transference of birthright, and you'll still get the same prophecy pundits every Erev Shabbat telling you all a bunch of nonsense that's not going to happen. And it's not true, and it's actually, what they're telling you is black and it's white. And you know what? It's wild. I'm nearly finished. This is my close. So what we're seeing is this Torah portion playing out. The division of Joseph, which is Ephraim and Judah, from Ephraim and Israel, from Judah, was a repeat action of the separation from Joseph from the rest of his family. This drama has repeated itself throughout the centuries. What was Judah's role in all of this? We saw how Solomon, a Jew, oppressed all the tribes, and how his Jewish son Rehoboam wished to oppress the northern tribes led by Joseph even more. And why did he want to do it? Why did Rehoboam want to do it? For financial gain. Well, my father taxed you this much, but I'm going to tax you. There has been a constant rebellion against the firstborn rights established by Yahweh down the corridor of history, culminating today with the modern post-Zionist state of Israel, with support from misguided Christian Zionists and Messianic Zionists not rightly dividing the word of Yahweh. And I would have called myself a Christian Zionist back in the church. I lived in Israel when I was 18. Went there with my church, supported Israel. And I would also say that when I was Messianic too. Until I started to read more and more and more and realize that I have transferred my ideas of what the biblical prophecies of biblical Israel onto something that was created by man. And then I actually started to read the Bible, and now I'm a biblical Zionist. I look for the Zion of Yahweh's word. But that over there, that's not it. And I look for the Israel of Yahweh's word. But over there, that's not it. And I can distinguish between the two now. Now, I was misguided because I truly love the word of Yahweh, and I thought that it was one and the same. Because that's what we were taught in church. But we were also taught that the Torah was nailed to the cross. We were also taught many things that aren't true. So this is all part of coming out of her, my people. But it's a key part with where we're at today in the world with what's going on. Israel is not the restoration of biblical Israel. The present state of Israel is the rightful inheritance of the carnal firstborn Esau, who was to be given a short probation to demonstrate both to himself, and it's just a short probation, to demonstrate to both himself and to the world that he is not worthy of the responsibility nor the blessings of the firstborn heir. He lacks the credentials to have the stewardship over the kingdom mandate. And like unredeemed Jacob, he is claiming something that is absolutely not his. The name Israel, Esau is not an overcomer, but a Yahweh despiser and a Messiah rejecter. Do you see the modern day equivalent? Ephraim may be new to this in comparison with Judah, but age doesn't mean seniority, does it? We see that with Reuben and Joseph. So most Christians and Messianics are unaware that in much of prophecy, Israel refers only to the northern kingdom and not to the 12 tribes. Today, it's been counterfeited and flipped to the southern tribe. Judah was never called Israel. Never. It was called Judah. So we go all the way back and we see that this is Toldot. That this very week's Torah portion comes alive to us when you see how everything in the world is played out because the Bible is alive in our generations. And we, as being wise as serpents, but as harmless as doves, we do need to be the grey man. We need to be below the radar. Be as wise as serpents, as harmless as doves. Evangelism to our families, to our children, is the highest calling. To our grandchildren, it's the highest calling. To the children here. Because this is the generations, these generations are seeing these things and being raised up in these things. It's the highest calling. Don't be discouraged. Mothers, when you're at home with the children, don't be discouraged. Be encouraged to doing the right thing. When you're taking them out of the world, when you're raising them up in these ways, don't be discouraged. That is evangelism. And watch for what happens to Syria. And understand the history behind what's going on with Russia, USSR, Putin, and realize that we can be a part of history, but we have to go and take action and make action. But that begins first and foremost around the Shabbat table with our wives and with our Toldot, our generations. It truly does. It truly does. And when we can do this, understanding the birthright will bring forth the fruit of righteousness. Amen? Lots to cover. Took a long time, sorry. Any questions? And then we'll have some food together. Questions, thoughts, comments. You don't have to agree with me. Again, I don't know everything, but I tell you what, I do try to look at things through the lens of Scripture, and I'm open to learning more all the time.
Was the Khazar kingdom, did they become the Eastern European Jews?
Yeah, the Khazars became the Ashkenazi Jews. So the Ashkenaz was not a Shemite, was he? So you're not being anti-Shemitic, you're actually being anti-Japheth. Because Ashkenaz was a son of Japheth, right? See? So it's been flipped. Oh yeah, excellent. The 13th tribe. Excellent book. Have you read it? Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Wild stuff. Questions, thoughts? Yeah. Yeah? It's just a connection the sages have made over the years for the birth of Zion, that it would be 60, 600, and in the 6,000th year. That's what it is. Birthings. And that ultimately there'd be the birth of Zion. John. Some crazy stuff, man. Oh yeah, I mean I do too. And understand, this is coming from what I would call, I was a Christian Zionist, and when I was a Messianic, super Zionist too. Financially supported various organizations, went over there, flags, everything. Kippas. I used to at one point, I wore only a white shirt, black trousers, seats, and a black head covering, looked like an Orthodox Jew. Yahweh's done an amazing work in me, that's for sure. It's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff.